Andrew's a human trafficker. Have you seen a single video of a single woman accusing me of anything? Why is it always the men who are against the establishment who get attacked? Why does Assange get a rape charge? I have one. Trump has one. Russell Brand has one. Everyone who talks against the system gets rape charges. But everyone who works for the system, even though they go on Epstein's plane to the island, they never get any charges.
If you knew who was really in power, would you say it? Andrew, you've danced around the answer when people ask you in interviews why sometimes you wear sunglasses and sometimes you don't. Today you're wearing sunglasses. I've kind of hypothesized maybe it's because you want to come off a certain way, but this is kind of out there. Do you wear sunglasses in certain interviews so people's energy can't get into your soul?
You know what? That's a good question. Let me take them off. I do have bad eyes. That is true. So if the light's in my eyes for too long, I start to squint. I don't want to look squinty.
Yeah.
That was how it started. But then now I wear them so often. Yeah, I do like the idea of people not being able to penetrate my soul via my eyes. And I also like the idea of looking out the corner of my eyes. I do that a lot. I wear really dark sunglasses and then I look at other people in the room.
Interesting.
Why I do that, perhaps I'm just paranoid. I'm not sure. I should think of a really cool reason. I should think of something really cool and inventive as to why I wear them. But I just like having sunglasses on. Perhaps I do like to hide the windows to my soul. Not everybody needs to see in my eyes. You know, like why? Not everybody has to see deep. They say that your eyes tell the truth. And that is true. Like I can even talk from fighting. No matter how good someone's poker face is, you can see it in their eyes. If you hit them with a hard shot, even if their face doesn't move, you see it in their eyes. So when you fight somebody, you look directly into their eyes to see if you've hurt them or not. So perhaps I like to keep my eyes shielded for that reason. I'm not sure. But I wear sunglasses. It's not just interviews. I wear sunglasses probably 80% of my waking day every day. I always wear sunglasses all the time.
You're really protective of your energy. That's interesting.
Yeah, and maybe, if they acid attack me, I can retain my vision long enough to get the Aikido and snap their necks.
Yeah.
I just don't really see the disadvantage. So I wear sunglasses all the time unless it gets really dark.
We have a little gift for you. This is from my friend Travis. We got you these custom Muay Thai.
Amazing. Daddy. Let me open this up. Let me see. Let me open this up.
I have to show them to the camera. Nice daddy shorts.
Love it. For daddy coin. I love this. I'm gonna literally wear these in the next daddy promotional video. I had a promotional video that I'm gonna release soon for Daddy Coin.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be me and my brother. We have the daddy coins and we jump on ATVs and we run away and all these beautiful women chase us on ATVs. And before we came up with the idea and before we filmed it, I said, the problem is women can't drive. So how are we going to make this? And all the girls sat there and said, don't be crazy. We can drive. It's only an ATV. 5 minutes in, they crashed. Broke her leg. I told you. So now the daddy video, you'll see when it's released. It all starts all cinematic and it cuts to me saying, I told you women can't drive. The ATV on top of a chick.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm going to make another one with these. Thank you very much, sir. Because once I'm free, I'm going to do a daddy world tour. So anyone who wants to get in on the daddy project, now's your time to get in. Because once we do the world tour, the price is going to go to the moon. So I'm going to do a daddy world tour once I'm released from my confines. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure, yeah. So you have this series, The Way of Wudon. You have this entire lore written about yourself.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
And it's underappreciated. And you know what? This is the first podcast in history I'm being asked about it. I've been writing those stories for years. Nobody's ever asked me about them.
There's a lot, too.
Yeah,
I went through it one time. It's like your own Bible, your own religious text.
Yep, there's loads. There's loads in there. I wrote them with my dad while my dad was alive. And then when he died, I continued to write them. So Master Poe is my father.
Yeah.
And then I am adept number 1.
In one of the stories, you and Master Poe practice 42 breaths a minute. Is there any significance to that number, 42?
I can't remember, to be honest with you. I remember writing that one with my dad. I'm not sure if there's significance behind the number. I don't think there is. I'm being perfectly honest. But the stories and how Poe is so hard on the adept and what you learn from Master Poe's stoicism is heavily based on my father. My father is the character of Poe. So, and we inside the war room, we do analyze the stories for lessons. There's a lot of lessons inside of them that teach you about life. And I've got some new ones I've yet to release. So we started to animate them all. I don't know if you've seen all the animated versions. We're starting to animate them all now. We're going to build a cartoon series. But yeah, it's educational. The stories of Wudon, they're pretty educational.
You said at one point that you never forget a phone number.
I said my father never forgets a phone number.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but what if this is a test? We'll try it.
510.
510. All right. 510. You're gonna put me on the spot here. I said my father never forgets a phone number.
What's your father's number?
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. There's an old saying, a man has two lives. One starts the day he's born, and the other the day his father dies.
Yep.
On October 17th, 2015, your father, Emery, suffered a heart attack during a chess tournament and died at age 56. How did you handle the news, and what impact did this have on you?
Well, I was very quiet when I found out. When bad things happen, you're often quiet. This is something to remember for life. If somebody's sitting there explaining how bad their life is or how bad they feel or how bad something's happened and they're blabbering away, they feel fine. They just want attention.
True sadness is silence.
Yeah, true sadness is silence. So when someone's sitting there going, oh, it's so hard, it's so bad, they just want you to feel sorry for them. They want attention. They're being a baby. If they were truly sad, they wouldn't say very much at all. It affected my life because I felt like my days of learning were over and then it was my time to teach. It's a instant shift in mentality because while my father was alive, I obeyed everything I was told. And then he died and it's like, okay, well now there's no one else left to obey or anyone else I'll respect on that level. I had my fight coach who I always respected and I will respect to the end of my life. But there's just a shift in mentality from student to teacher. And there you feel a lot more responsible for things. You grow up in a lot of ways. And it's a natural progression of life. There's the only alternative to losing your parents is for them to lose you, which I think would be worse because it's not the way things are supposed to go. So what we said earlier about feedback is absolutely true. You sit there and you realize all the times you should have spoke to him when you didn't, and the calls you should have answered, and the times you should have prioritized family over something else, and you learn from it, and you take it all moving forward. But I think he did a fantastic job as a father. I think I had the best father on the planet, and even as we said about Trump losing, or perhaps my father's job was to die at that perhaps moment to teach me what I needed to know. Perhaps that was his final task, and he did it flawlessly. So if my father was still alive, I wouldn't be half the man I am today. But this is how life's supposed to go, and I hope my sons will one day say the same thing about me. And he gets to live forever because I'm so fantastic. That's the greatest thing about having a son. That's the whole point of having a son. Yeah. It used to be Andrew, son of. You were the representation to the name. So my father will be discussed into eternity because I am being discussed. And hopefully my son is so fantastic that I am discussed into eternity. So when you have a son, you want him to be such an exceptional individual. People want to listen to him speak so you can live forever. That's the point of having a son in the first place. I don't know why some people have children and they say, I just want my children to be happy. That's great. They can be nobodies, but I want my children to be important. And it's not just about happiness. Life's not just about happiness. They have duty and honor, and they have important things they must do. And they have things they must do even if it doesn't make them happy because they're supposed to do it. And I'm going to raise a lineage of super soldiers, and the name Tate will echo into eternity, pissing the Matrix off, and they're going to be my offspring, and they have a duty, and they don't get to just be happy. They have work to do. So, yeah, I reacted to my father's death the best way I could, which I believe was learning lessons from it, like you're supposed to.
I went through his old Twitter. You asked Elon to reinstate it or maybe to not take it down because he was going through a lot of bot Twitter accounts and inactive ones at the time. I'll read you some quotes. So, the truth is underestimated, often is manipulated, oftentimes unanticipated, rarely unappreciated, never to be mitigated, often to be celebrated. What do you make of this?
Well, truth is unappreciated. I think he nails it almost in the first line. People don't want the truth if it doesn't make them feel the way they want to feel. There's confirmation bias. People say they like to find information that already confirms the things they already think. That is true, but I think confirmation bias is actually a lot more applicable to feelings. People like to see things that makes them feel the way they want to feel or confirm the feelings they already have. That's what's so dangerous about emotional creatures. If they feel angry, they're only going to see things that make them feel angry. And if you don't have the agency as a man, if you don't have the capability to use the truth to benefit your life, then the truth is going to be unappreciated, right? if you look at the realities of the world and you can take all of those realities and use them as building blocks, become a more fantastic person or build a fantastic life, then you're going to like the truth. But if you look at the truth and you don't have the competence and agency to do it, then the truth is going to aggravate you and you'd rather not see it. You'd rather see a false version of reality. Mm. So I think a lot of it comes down to your competence and capabilities as a man and how prepared you are to look into the truth and understand certain things. That's what the whole Matrix is. The whole version of the whole idea of the Matrix is a false version of reality they're projecting in front of everybody's eyes. You look at the truth of the fact that they're stealing from the tax base and inflation's out of control and they start these wars for profit. And you look at all these truths. If you can use those truths and understand them in a way that you can still benefit, even by telling the truth about the truth, even by just highlighting the truth to other people, then the truth is going to become attractive. But if you're working your ass off in some bullshit job, getting inflated to the point you can't pay rent anymore, and you have to look at this truth and it's only going to aggravate you and you don't have the skills it takes to use that truth to benefit yourself, then you're going to rather not see it. So I think he said something else, often manipulated. Yeah, absolutely. People say truth is subjective, but I don't think that's true. There is a truth. And to understand that and to appreciate that, you have to be able to use that to win.
A combination of my sheer indefatigability and my unequaled perspicacity makes me a feared adversary, regardless of field of endeavor. You changed up his words a little bit.
No, when he used to say it,
yeah,
he said it different than he tweeted it. So why he tweeted it that way, I'm not sure. But he used to say, my unmatched perspicacity coupled with sheer indefatigability makes me a feared opponent in any realm of human endeavor. That's what he used to say. Yeah. And he said it quite often. And it is my favorite saying. I still use it to this day because it means everything. But it means everything. In fact, I even said this in one of my business group chats 2 days ago. We were talking about the fact that the Matrix has tried so hard to shut us down. They've taken our payment processors and they banned us from everything. And Visa have banned us. MasterCard have banned us. We've been through the highest level Matrix attacks. Bank accounts have been frozen. Insanity. And we pay attention and we find new opportunities, unmatched perspicacity, and we never give up. We work 18-hour days, which is sheer indefatigability. And it makes you a feared opponent. If you pay attention and you never give up, you will win. If you pay attention to all of the opportunities and threats and you never give up or quit, you will win.
Maybe that's what countries should be optimizing for.
Perhaps you're right.
He said, a man does not acquire a full skill set to be told, take care, be careful by amateurs. Raw action solves everything. Caution breeds fear.
Absolutely. So people will say to me, Andrew, you say too much truth. You talk too much. You're in the middle of these legal cases. You should shut up. If there's anybody on earth who can beat this Matrix attack, it's me. I've got the money. I've got the team around me. I've got the bravery. I can explain myself in court very well. I can make everybody at home, despite the BBC printing negative things about me every single day, understand it's a lie. Normally when the media hits you how they've hit me, everyone believes them. I can beat them, and I've beaten them every time I've sat in front of them. When the BBC come and do an interview with you as a setup, and you lose, not me, I win, and I go viral for winning. So when everyone's saying, be careful, I don't have to listen because I have a full skill set. And when he says caution breeds fear, he's right. If you sit down and go, the BBC are going to set me up and they're going to edit it and they're going to get sound bites to make me look guilty. So I probably shouldn't do the BBC, which means I probably shouldn't do this one. Maybe I shouldn't do media all. Maybe I should stop talking. Maybe I shouldn't tweet. Maybe I should just be quiet and hope it all goes away, be a coward and hide in my hole like a little bitch and pray that somehow it all goes away on its own. And I'll just sit there and take no action at all. Raw action solves everything. Yeah. Inaction is an action of itself. Inaction is cowardice.
And it's the worst one.
Exactly. Yeah. So I have a full skill set. I'm not afraid of anybody. I believe that doing more work is always going to be better than doing less work. Doing more is better than doing less in all realms. And over caution breeds fear. And I'm not scared of these people. I'm not scared of anyone else. I'm going to say the truth if I believe it to be the truth, and I'll pay the price for that. And I'm not afraid of the consequences. So it is what it is. And I understand that saying absolutely.
I wonder if you've seen this one recently. Again, I worry if gays cannot have children, all they need is your children to continue their sex lives. How could this logic be flawed? Tate.
Absolutely. Why does the LGBT agenda target children? Well, one, because they want to propagate a future. And as my father correctly pointed out, they can't have kids. They need your kids. And secondly, when you have any idea or any ideology that's so ridiculous, you need to aim it at children primarily. Well, that shows that your idea lacks logic. Right? You can't aim it at adults. You have to aim it at kids, which are most impressionable. You have to convince children that a man can be a girl. and children believe in Santa Claus. So that's why they aim for kids, to try and infiltrate their minds early before they have enough experience of life and logic and reasoning to refute. So yeah, they aim for the children to poison their minds, to get more adherents to their cult, or at least get the children to grow up accepting of their cult. And, you know, they'll call me homophobic. I'm not homophobic, but I will not leave my kids in the hands of gay men. I don't want gay people around my children. I don't really want them in my life very much at all. I just don't see the point of it all. And I think that also your worldview changes when you can't have your own children. I think you have a vested interest in the sanctity of society when you have kids. Yeah. If you have kids, you care about the future because you have children. And especially if you're not particularly, I mean, I'm extremely financially successful, but if you're not only do you care about the future, you care about the geography you're tied to. I was born in this town. My kids are born in this town. Probably never going to leave this town. We care about this town. I don't want bad things to happen to this town because my kids grow up here. If you're just going to fuck and not have kids, well, then you don't care about what happens to very much at all. You just become hedonistic. Hedonism's a black hole that never ends. It goes to the bottom of, it goes all the way down to the depths of hell. You end up just doing more and more weird shit, chasing a high you're never going to find. And you have no interest in anything outside of yourself or the future. So to sit and say gays are bad people, I'm sure they'd attack me and call me homophobic to the ends of earth for that. I'm saying they're not nearly as interested in the future. They're not. They're interested in themselves, chasing a high, getting some kind of feeling out of the world right here, right now. And their only interest in the future is to psyop and poison other people's, straight people's children into giving them a future sexual partner, which is quite sad, really. I mean, how can you argue that they are as morally balanced as people who have families? How can you say they're just as moral? Now, of course, the Matrix will, and of course they will. But if you actually analyze it and actually want to sit and discuss it, people who have children are going to have a higher interest in the future morality of society than people who don't. That's the bottom line. Yep. And they're going to call me homophobic all over the news for this, and that's fine. But I know I'm right. So caution
really
breeds
interesting.
fear.
Optimizing for legacy yields a different outcome.
Well, of course. I mean, you want your children to grow up in a place where you want them to grow up in a world that's livable. You're more likely to resist enslavement and slavery if you know that your children are going to have to grow up as slaves. If all you give a shit about is trying to ejaculate, then you don't have very much interest in much at all. Why would you? I mean, it's not hard to do, especially as promiscuous as gays are. Women are the gatekeepers of sex, not men. Yeah. They can be endlessly promiscuous. They don't even need to be successful. They don't even need money. You don't even need to be rich or successful. All the things that women use to gatekeep sex, looking for a partner who's competent and successful, they don't have to struggle for that inside the gay community. You can just turn up, I guess. So what's the point of their lives? I don't know. I mean, is the point of their lives just sex? The very few gays I've ever interacted with talk about sex a lot. Like, straight people don't just sit down at dinner, hey, ho, so I fucked yesterday. Like, they do that. And I'm like, cause maybe that's their whole life. Maybe that's all they do. I think it's very strange how obsessed they are with sex, how much they talk about sex, especially the fact, I mean, being obsessed with sex that gives you children, I kind of get. A straight person should be more obsessed with sex because you get legacy. You get to build a genetic bloodline. Being obsessed with sex when you don't even get anything out of it is really weird. But they mention it very often and they talk about it a lot. They make it their entire personalities. They sexualize themselves. They make sexual innuendos, sexual jokes all the time. Their whole life is just based around pointless sex. It just feels sad and empty. It feels vaporous. And I don't know how they can be happy as people if they are at all, because there's nothing to live for. I'm sure they're going to argue with me and say, what do you mean nothing to live for? I have an IKEA set, and they're going to talk some shit. But the reality of the world is that you live for your children and you live to pass on your mindset and your views and your legacy. And I guess perhaps they have realized that and just decided to try and hijack other people's kids as a weapon. Maybe that's what they're going to do. I'm not sure. But it's also very interesting how all the leaders of the Western world are homosexuals. It's also very weird as well. You talk about not having a vested interest in the morality of the future, and then every single Western leader is some fucking homo.
Do you think they were always that way, or do you think they became?
Well, I mean, you have to be blackmailed to get into those positions of power. So, I mean, they decided to take the bait. You can just see it on their faces. You can just see on the faces of the current Western leadership, they're all gay. You can just see on them that they lack something in their eyes, masculine. We don't have a single, besides Trump, there's not a single male leader in the West. And they'll say, oh, that's a male. No, it's not a man, though, is it? It's not a man. It's not like you look at Putin, you see a man, and then you look at Keir Starmer.
What do you see?
Yeah, it's obvious. It's obvious. And we're not allowed to say these things, but it's very obvious. And then, if you desecrate the American flag, it's fine. But if you desecrate a pride flag, it's a hate crime. You get 20 years in jail. I mean, that's the religion of the West now. What is the West? What are the values of the West? Gangster rap, frozen food, and LGBT. What do we even have left anymore? What's real? It seems the only thing you can't insult is LGBT. The only thing they promote all the time is LGBT. The only thing they try and propagate around the entire world is LGBT. They never miss a chance to prove how gay they are at any event ever. Any kind of cultural event they ever have, they can't wait trying to prove how gay they are. It's just strange, Unless it's a satanic agenda trying to make people lose faith in the future or not have any interest in the morality of humanity anymore so that we can just enslave everybody and fuck kids. I mean,
Satanism is the belief that Earth is the kingdom, right?
Yep.
That there's no other kingdom past that.
That's right. And Satanism, I also understand, is the belief in, to a degree, hedonism. Me and how I feel matters more than anything else. There is no objective morality. What matters is how I feel. And, that would make you a crazy conspiracy theorist, of course, but they do seem to promote Satan all of the time. And that's proof to why God is real. People say, why do you believe in God? Well, the people in charge of the world believe in God enough to try and destroy the idea of God. So doesn't that prove that God
Satan
is real?
Satan is the biggest believer in God.
Well, there you go. Of course. If they're going to try so hard to remove God from society, then he must be real, because these are the people who are trying to enslave you and your children. But yeah, I find it very strange how, I don't know how gay people really think about the world. I'm sure some gay is going to make a reply to this video. I'm not going to watch it. I don't care. Why would I? But the very few I've interacted with are overly sexual and very weird. They're just weird people. Outside of their sexuality, they're just weird. I don't feel comfortable around them. It's strange.
There's an old saying, the only man that wants you to be more successful than him is your father. Do you believe your father wanted you to be more successful than him?
I wouldn't say believe. I would say he expected.
Really?
Yeah, I would say it was an expectation, and not an expectation like, wow, my son can do anything. It was an expectation like, you better be, boy. I didn't spend all this time feeding you for nothing. It was far less a happy expectation and more real.
But he wanted you to be successful or more successful than him.
How do you judge more successful? And we go down the rabbit hole, because I think in many ways I was not as successful as him. I would never be able to play chess like he could. But he wanted me to live up to my last name.
But if you could play chess better than him, is that something you think he would accept?
Yeah, I think he'd be very happy with
Really?
that. I think he'd be extremely proud of that. But I had a last name I had to represent, and he expected me to represent it flawlessly. He didn't expect me to ever fail, and I never would. And I expect the same of my son. So I think the reason a father wants his son to be more successful is because love is your link to the future, right? And you want your name to be as respected as possible as a man. I want my name to be as respected as possible, so I have to act in a certain way to lend credence to the name Tate. If I can have a son who also lends even more credence to the name Tate, that's a relief. It's like, fantastic, great. Finally, someone takes over the workload. So yeah, I think that's absolutely correct.
You and Tristan retired your mother once you guys got enough money to. She was washing dishes before, a dish lady. Do you think you would have retired Emery if you had the same capabilities?
Yeah, good question. But my dad had enough money for what he wanted. My dad didn't want things. He didn't want material things. And I think the only thing better than having everything you want is not wanting anything. My dad just wanted to play chess. He didn't want anything. And that's better, because even if you get everything you want, you then have to maintain everything. I can tell you from experience. It'd be much better for me to not want supercars than have them all. Because I have them all now. I have to maintain them all. I have to store them all. I have to insure them all. I have to fix them all. And then I have to find a time to drive them all. It's easier if I just didn't want them. Now, a lot of people will pretend they don't want supercars, but they do, but they just can't get them, right? But if I had all this money and I genuinely didn't want them, like I can give an example. I don't want, let's say I don't want a yacht. I might get one. We just discussed this. It was a bad example, but I don't want a yacht. That's so much better than having the yacht I want, because it's so much less work. So my dad really didn't want things. He wasn't money motivated. He was chess motivated. If my father was money motivated, he would be extremely wealthy. He just didn't want it. For the same reason I have money, but I'm not that good at chess. I'm money motivated, not chess motivated. I chose a different path. But if my father wanted money, of course I'd give it to him. But I can't imagine him even asking for it or wanting it. I can't imagine him wanting it. If he had $25 and a place to sleep, he was fine. He didn't care. He wasn't interested.
On your mother and your sister, so you sometimes talk about your mother, rarely about your sister. Were you concerned about your mom and sister's lack of support during your case, especially given your sister's opposing liberal views? Because you
No.
said they always attack women, right?
Yeah.
When they try to get to you.
Yeah. I mean, my mom is a very good mother. My sister's fine. They have their worldviews. Men and women view the world in different ways. But I wasn't ever really looking for support from anybody either. To be honest with you, I wasn't in jail saying, "Where's my support?" In fact, I was doing the opposite. I was in jail saying, "How do I still take care of everyone I need to take care of?" Just like as I did before when I was free. So, I mean, it's an interesting question, but I'm trying to think, did I ever for once ponder or considered I needed support from anybody?
Not their support, but maybe their lack of support, like them trying to get information out of them trying to psyop them somehow.
Yeah, I mean, I would hate for anyone close to me to ever turn on me. I don't think either of them ever would. But truthfully, I just hope they're happy and I hope that for them to be left out of it. I just hope that they didn't have any stress or any problems and my brother and I will deal with the jail and they can continue to be women. Once again, I'm a misogynist, right? In the worst possible way. So I don't want women to be stressed. I don't think they can handle stress. So if it's my girlfriend, my mother, whoever, if I'm in a bad situation, I don't want my girlfriend stressed because of it because I'm so misogynistic. I don't believe that she can handle it. So I just want her kept out and kept happy. I want her to go and play with teddy bears, whatever she wants to do, and be smiling, put on her makeup and do her lip gloss and whatever. And I'll deal with all the difficult things because I'm a terrible misogynistic man. So I just hope they leave them alone, right?
What's one thing your mother taught you?
Very good question. It's a really good question. And I should have an answer for it. But I think don't fathers make the sons? I don't know. Maybe not anymore. Maybe that explains the world we're fucking in. I don't know. My dad made me. My mother fed me. My mother kept me alive. My mother, made sure I went to sleep and went to school and had lunch in my lunchbox. But all my lessons in life came from my dad. So maybe she taught me that. Maybe she taught me a woman's job is to have kids and keep them alive. And the most difficult, important, potent lessons are going to come from the father. Perhaps she taught me that.
So let's transition a bit here. I'm going to cut some questions for time's sake, but this is a segment called This or That. You just choose an option. You don't have to say why. Cigars or coffee?
Coffee.
Sparkling or still?
Sparkling.
Steak or sushi?
Steak.
Jiu-jitsu or boxing?
Boxing.
Jordan or LeBron?
I know so little about basketball, but Jordan.
Messi, Ronaldo?
Ronaldo.
Magnus Carlsen or Bobby Fischer?
That's a really good one. I know I'm going to break the rules of this or that. I'm going to break the rule. I'm a rule breaker.
Bobby Fischer's great.
Fischer was an interesting guy. Do you know his life story?
I know a bit about it.
Yeah, so Fischer went to play Russia and become the world champ. He was going to go play. And then I have to remember this correctly, he was a real nightmare at the chess tournament, at the actual game itself. He was complaining about the cameras and complaining about the lights and all these different things. Eventually, in the end, he won the championship. And after he won the championship, he then refused to play chess basically ever again. He went into a hermit mode, started doing all this investigation, came up with this crazy conspiracy that the Jews were ruining the world. Be careful what we say, we're on YouTube. And he refused to play chess ever, but then also said he was the world champion. And when anyone else would play or say they're the world champion, he'd be like, no, I still am. He ended up replaying the guy he originally played, Boris Spassky, in the original world championship, like 30, 40 years later in Yugoslavia. At the time, there was a war there, so he got sanctioned by the US for going to Yugoslavia because he wasn't supposed to go. Once again, hated the Jews a lot and retired in Iceland, up in Iceland where he had played the first world championship. Iceland accepted him and he kind of walked around Iceland aimlessly until he died.
Yeah.
2012, I think he died. Magnus, I've spoken to a little bit, tiny bit. Obviously, he's a very capable chess player, but I don't know. I feel like the sport of chess is missing pizzazz. Like if my dad was world champion, or I was world champion, chess would be the biggest sport in the world. Bobby Fischer had all this uniqueness about him. A lot of these chess players are just good at chess and they take their money and they're not that controversial and they get paid and don't have opinions on X and Y and Z and they get paid chess and like it's missing. Like where's the street fights and like WWE, even fighting in WWE, there's buzz around the event. That's what chess is missing, because you need to make people want to learn chess at a level where they can understand chess enough to appreciate it. Boxing is easy to appreciate because everyone understands a punch in the face. Jiu-jitsu is not as easy to appreciate because if you don't watch or play, if you don't do jiu-jitsu, you don't really get what's going on. Chess is even worse than that. You have to get very good at it to appreciate it. So to do that, you need to get some buzz around it. So I feel like the current chess players lack personality a little bit. I'm not trying to insult them at all. I'm not even sure if they're allowed to have personality. Maybe it's against FIDE rules. I don't know. But I don't know. We need some WWF table flipping. We need something going on to make people want to watch it a bit more, because chess is a beautiful game. And unfortunately, the world we now live in, it's an attention economy and it's getting harder and harder to garner attention with anything. So
Magnus showing up to games late isn't enough.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we need some Bobby Fischer level, go crazy, hide in Iceland, go to Yugoslavia while it's at war.
He would play
level.
like blindfolded chess, like multiple games at a time. Have you ever done something like that?
I've never done it, but my dad has done it. My dad has played blindfolded.
I tried to
chess.
do it once. It said that it leads to psychosis, and I tried it, and I was like,
Sounds
oh,
about
this
right.
is very mentally strenuous.
Sounds about right. Yeah, my dad could beat me without looking at the board. So I'd sit here with the board, and he'd be in another room, and I'd say C4. I'd say E4. He'd say C5, Knight F3, Knight C6, and he'd just shout out words and beat me. Yeah, it's crazy. And Magnus, I think Magnus has done that with 4 or 5 people at once, blind, while playing 5 different games simultaneously. I think he's done that. It's crazy how good these people are at this game. It's really it's ridiculous. It's incredible. But I'm gonna say Bobby Fischer anyway. Bobby Fischer. Sorry, Magnus. Bobby.
Bugatti or Pagani?
Bugatti.
Bitcoin or Ethereum?
Another really good question. I've heard, well, Ethereum has a purpose more than Bitcoin. Ethereum has a use case. Bitcoin's just the gold, right? But if Bitcoin's digital gold, then you say Ethereum's digital oil, because you have to use the oil and burn the oil. And Ethereum's also deflationary now. If I had to only hold one, I'd choose Bitcoin.
Yeah, me too. Putin or Trump?
That's a hard one. That's a hard one.
Who would you rather lead the U.S.?
They're both extremely competent nationalists, which is what you expect in a leader, but Trump.
Trump or Kamala?
Girl boss. Bro. I would love to sit down with Kamala in an interview like this and say, please explain to me how you're going to fix. You can choose. Choose a subject, choose an issue America faces, explain what it is without repeating yourself, and tell me how you're going to fix it. Go. Oh, well, inflation means no one can afford groceries. Da, da, da. Okay, cool. What's your plan to fix inflation? Oh, well, people need money because they can afford groceries. No, what's your plan to fix it? How does inflation start? Where does it come from? How are you going to fix it? What are you going to do? What laws are you going to pass? Please explain something that makes fucking sense. You know, she's going to get all the way to the end of the presidential race. She can get all the way to voting day without ever explaining once what she's going to do to anyone. She's never going to once explain to anybody her plans to fix anything. And there's going to be people in line going, Kamala. Bro, it's so over. It's so over.
US or UK?
UK. As failed as it is, Keir Starmer, fucking loser. Crime's bad. I know as failed as it is, but there's something about England that even I miss. I can't explain it. It's raining outside. You don't know your neighbor. You've lived next to him for 15 years. You've never said hello. It's just something about the English mentality. I can't explain it. It's like the least friendly, most miserable, depressing place on the planet. And there's a degree of depression. Everything goes full circle. You can go through depressing out the other side to like comfort. It's like, yeah, I'm here. I live here. I don't know any of my neighbors. They don't talk to me. I don't talk to them. It's raining. There's nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. cup of tea, bitter face. It's great.
Thailand or Dubai?
Dubai if you're rich, Thailand if you're poor.
Europe or Asia?
Europe, because I love to drive. The only reason I even have cars is Europe. If you don't live in Europe, there's no point having supercars. People in England, people in America say, oh, I bought a new Ferrari. Why the fuck would you buy a Ferrari in America? Straight lines, 60-mile-per-hour speed limit. You have to stick to the speed limit, otherwise you get shot by the cops. Boring. Maybe you could put your foot down a little bit in a straight line and make a little bit of noise. Boring and gay. There's no point in having a sports car in America. You may as well just get an SUV and just go with the traffic. Europe has beautiful mountain roads. They have all these different jurisdictions. You race through Italy. By the time you lose your license, it doesn't matter. You go into France. Then carry on. It's great. You have the Alps. You have all the castles. You have beautiful little hotels to stay at. You can drive around Europe forever. You can never get bored. You can always find something new and beautiful to do. Europe is actually the best continent on the planet. It has all the weather, all the seasons, the most luxury places to go. You can drive here. It's a shame that it's collapsing, and it is collapsing, and Europe will fall before America does, and it's truly a shame.
English or Spanish?
English. Fucking Spanish. KC fucking.
Whoever moves first is gay.
Fuck this game, bro. I've seen this game. I've seen this game, bro. It's fine. It's fine. Until you have as many children as me, I think I'm pretty good. So yeah. I'm not gonna sit here for 25 minutes. It's fine. Have you seen the clown that hides from gay people?
Shit, I forgot how to answer this.
Have you seen the clown that hides from gay people?
Yeah, I've seen him. Have you?
No, he hides from the gays. I'm lucky, bro.
Andrew, what's your best, most offensive joke?
Oh, bro, you really want to hear it?
Yeah.
What did the little boy with no arms and no legs get for Christmas?
What did he get?
Cancer. Merry Christmas, Timmy. Off to the ward. No, I'm joking.
I have some personal questions, just ones out of my curiosity. I'll start with an easier one. What's the best way to approach citizenship right now? Should someone become a citizen of the world, or how should you go about that?
Yeah, so Darwin said in the theory of evolution, it's not the largest or the strongest animal that survives, it's the most adaptable. So you surely should have the ability to move if you so need it, especially in a world as chaotic as it is, which means you should have multiple citizenships. People, especially Americans, have this idea that they can prep and fight the government. Well, I'll go out to the woods and I'll get guns and I'll hide out. You're never going to have more guns in the government. You're never going to have more guns in the government. You're just going to die in a firefight. That's all that's going to happen at best. So you have to have the ability to leave and to move. You have to have money in foreign jurisdictions. You shouldn't have all your money inside of one jurisdiction, because if you piss that government off, they'll take it. A lot of people think the money in the bank is theirs. Very interesting to me that you think, oh, that was my money in my bank. Cool. Piss off the government and wait till a judge stamps a piece of paper, and you'll learn very quickly that that money is not yours. Neither is that house that you own. Neither is that land you own or that car. They will seize it all. Been through a bunch of seizures. It doesn't take very much for them to just say, he's a criminal, here, stamp this. And they just take all your shit. So yes, a lot of countries do citizenship by investment, especially if you start to make money, you need to investigate. You'd be surprised what 100 or 200 grand will get you in Turkey or the Caribbean or South African countries, and a lot of those South American countries, and a lot of those countries afford visa-free access to countries that perhaps your American passport doesn't. So it gives you even more ability to travel the world, and it gives you the ability to live somewhere else. You should be adaptable. You should think outside the box. Absolutely. There's no reason why you shouldn't have a Turkish passport and a Turkish bank. And if you wanted to really go down the rabbit hole, you can then change your name in Turkey. So now you have a bank account that's not in your name and a passport that's not in your name, but it is you. And then, there's a lot of things you could do.
For viewers who don't understand, basically, so like when you go to Thailand, for instance, you only have a visa for, 90 days, 180 days. But if you get citizenship of Thailand, then you can be forever? Or
you can stay forever and you can live there. That's
what
right.
countries would you recommend besides Turkey, maybe?
Yeah, so Turkey's good to do. Malta's good to do. Montenegro's good to do. These are all by investment. Caribbean is by investment. St. Kitts and Dominican, I think St.
By
Kitts,
investment
St.
in
Ives.
what exactly?
So you'd buy a house or a property. You'd spend a couple $100,000 on an apartment, and then you'd have a lawyer there, and you'd get citizenship by investment. You can get citizenship by naturalization, but that means you have to live there for a very long time. And you can get citizenship by ancestry, but then you have to prove your ancestry. So typically you want to be doing citizenship by investment. And you can just look this up online. You can go all the countries where you can do citizenship by investment. There's companies that do it for you. It's paperwork. It's a headache. It's money. Like everything in the world, paperwork, headache, money. But it's something you should start now before you need it for the day that you do need it. And you should get as many passports as possible because you cannot live off grid, but you can live on as many grids as possible so that it's much harder for one single government to damage you. Problem is you're an American citizen, you have an American passport, you have American banks, you have an American driver's license, you're an American. You piss America off. Cool. Then you're fucked. Right? It's over. Right? Whereas if you have passports everywhere and bank accounts everywhere and driver's licenses everywhere, if you piss America off, that's fine. You'll deal with your things. I'm not advocating anyone to break the law, but you can leave or you can go somewhere else. I see this all the time. People say, oh, I got a 3-year driving ban. I can't believe it. Then just fucking move. But they can't. Well, I can. If they ban me from driving in a country, I'll leave. If they gave me a criminal record in a country, that means every time I tried to get a job, I had to go through a CPS check and it showed I was a criminal. I'd once again leave. Like, it's amazing what's afforded to you when you can bounce. A lot of people can't bounce because they can't afford it. But if you can afford it, then you need to have the ability to live in many different jurisdictions. Dubai is another fantastic one. You cannot become a citizen of the United Arab Emirates, but you can become a resident.
Yeah.
Then you get banks. You can also get tax residency. Do you know what the tax rate in Dubai is?
9% corporate now.
That's right.
Was 0.
That's right. Basically 0. And that's 9% corporate if you own a company. Personal income, 0. So you can pay 0% taxes. Like there's so much.
America does have like the long arm stuff. So like if I go to Dubai, I'd have to revoke my citizenship. Does it still give me some type of leeway?
Well, if you have an American passport, you're always susceptible to the American system. But you can revoke, you can renounce.
Would you recommend that?
Well, if you really want to go down that route, you can renounce. What I would say to anybody who wants to renounce, do it before you're rich, not after. Because if you try and renounce when you're rich, they know why you're renouncing. It'll come for you hard. But I have some friends who renounced early and then got rich after, you know. But you can get a passport nearly anywhere via ancestry, naturalization, or investment. But primarily, money is nothing but stored time. That's all money is. If you have a lot of money, you have the stored time and energy of a lot of other people because I can pay somebody else to do something for me. I have their time and energy as a number on my screen. So instead of using your own time and energy, you want to use other people's. So that's what you should use money for, if you have money. But then again, it depends what you have, right? Because if you're poor, you don't have money, but you do have time, which is why a poor person waits for the bus because they can waste the time to save money. And a rich person takes a private jet because they can waste the money to save time. So you have to look at what you have. Do you have time? Do you have money? Do you have ancestry? Look at them. And like most things in life, do a little bit of work and try and get as many passports as possible because there's very little downside. And there will be a day where it might help you monumentally. It helped me massively during COVID. During COVID, when no one was allowed to fly, I would just arrive at countries and say, oh, let me in. Oh, you're not allowed in because of COVID. All right. Okay. What about this one? No, you're not allowed in because of COVID. What about this one? Oh, this passport's allowed in. Okay. Thanks. So I'm the same man with the same COVID, with no injections, with no vaccine. But because I had all the varying passports, they had different treaties with each country based on whatever. That allowed me to travel the whole world without ever getting an injection, ever.
This is another personal one. What do you think is the highest leverage use of my skills for making money? So let's assume, I mean, you've spoken with me for a couple hours now. Let's assume I'm really good at going viral, making other people go viral, and in some way monetizing that.
Yeah. So we live in an attention economy, and you're very good at getting attention or putting attention on people, which is fantastic. From there, you have to turn the attention into money, which is actually the hardest part, right? Because you can sell something, but whatever you sell is a reflection of you. So if you sell trash, you damage yourself. If you sell garbage, you damage yourself, and then you're going to limit your ability to garner attention in the future. So you have to find something worth selling. I mean, I'm about to tell you, obviously, you should advocate for the real world and Hustlers University. Of course, I could say that. That's an easy one.
Yeah.
But typically, the attention economy is the one we now live in. And if you can garner attention, you can find a way to make money from it. You just have to make sure you don't sell out your brand. But then you have to go down the route of whether you want to spend most of your time garnering attention or if you want to spend most of your time actually delivering on the product, or if you can find someone you can work with who has a team you can trust that the product is not going to be damaging to your reputation.
If my thing is attention, I should probably find someone else and blow them up, likely.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing you could do. But I mean, I'm trying to think outside the box for you besides selling something, what else you could do. But you're going to get to a point. Also, it depends how large you get. And eventually you're going to get to a point where people are paying you to come on your podcast. I mean, it gets to a point, or you get to a point where you gatekeep then you get to decide who comes on your podcast. I mean, I would like to argue if you have one of the largest podcasts in the world, there's people who would do anything to get on it, and that puts you in a position of power. But if you can garner attention, then you're already doing very well. You have the ability to get the message out there to people. You have to give a lot of free value. Like, let's say you have your YouTube channel. I don't know if you have a newsletter. I don't know if you have an email list. I don't know if you have these things yet. That's something you should have. You should try and attract as much information and data from people as possible. You should build lists where you give as much value as possible. You should be seen as being a value provider. And once you're seen as those things, from there, all you have to do is provide a service or a product, and people will buy it because they need it. And they see you're a trusted person who gives value, and then you will earn from it. The hard part isn't actually having a valuable product. The hard part is getting people to see it and buy it. So I have this all the time. People will come to me and say, Andrew, I've got a fantastic business idea.
Yeah.
I've got this lighter. It's a great lighter. I'll make the lighters. You sell the lighters, 50-50. And I'll sit and say, no, that's not a 50-50 business. That's 95% me, because you have the lighters, but no one fucking wants them. Nobody cares. I can make them want them, but I can also make them want anything else. I can make them want anything on the planet. I can make them want a pen instead of a lighter. So why do I need to go 50-50 with you? I'm the marketing, I'm the sales, I'm the attention. The attention is the money. So once you manage to you keep getting YouTube views, you build a newsletter, you get people to pay attention to you, you're seen as a value giver, you have the ability to make people see things, then it doesn't matter. The rest is the easy part. That's really where the money is.
When working with other companies, do you do agency work, or do you only promote the products through your own work?
So that's what I've done. Now I'm in a position where people will come to me, let's say the lighter example, and they say, Andrew, help me sell this lighter. And then I was so concerned with my reputation, I would look at the lighter. And I'd be like, because I refuse to sell shit. Most celebrities don't care. Give me the money. I'm different because I'm not getting $50 million sponsorships from the Matrix, right? If I sell shit, it's going to be all over BBC saying I'm a scammer. This was so interesting. If my school, The Real World, was garbage, they'd be saying it's garbage all over the news because they hate me. Yeah. But they don't even mention it anymore because they know it's good. They try not to mention it because they don't want people to sign up. So I'd look at the lighter and then I'd be me and I'd say, you know what? This could change, that could change, that could change. And I'd tell them, you have to change these things for me to want to sell your lighter. And then they give me some excuse or some ridiculous timeline. And then I'd think, fuck, I'll do the lighter myself. And that's how I ended up with all my own products effectively. Now I do everything myself. I mean, there's the university idea I came with off the top of my head because I knew that if I recommended anybody to go and learn, how could I sit here and say, guys, you need to make money and become financially successful so you're as important as possible, and then not give a resource for that? So then I'd give a resource and say, these people teach you how to make money, but I've looked at all their resources and they're all shit. So I just did it myself. Yeah. So I don't.
For fundraiser, for fundraiser.com, are you planning on just giving capital, or are you planning on kind of doing like a venture studio setup where you give like advice and consulting to those companies?
Yeah. So for fundraiser.com, we've got $50 million we're going to allocate. If I like the idea and I allocate to it, I'm going to take a percentage for the amount of money, and I'll also take a further percentage if they want my expertise or expertise of people on my team. And to be honest with you, I might put the two together. So
is it just expertise, or is it going to be like operational?
Yeah, it'll be operational. It'll be there not on the ground, but online, telling them what to do. And a lot of that will be, to be honest, I'll probably put the two together. I can't see myself giving money only to very many people unless I know them. Because if I'm going to give money, I also want it run by people who I trust and who are competent. So someone might come along and say, I need $1 million. And I'll say, fine, I'll give you $1 million for 20% and another 10% because this guy is going to be running this.
Are you going to raise for this fund eventually?
I've already got the money, $50 million.
So it's just your guys' money?
My money. My money. I've never raised for any of my ideas. I've never raised for any of my businesses. Every single thing I run is 100% run by me. I don't owe anybody anything. And I've been offered crazy amounts of money for people to buy X percents of my stuff. I don't want to have to talk to anyone else. I don't want anyone else's opinion. I'm the boss. It's my empire.
But you don't own any of your companies, for the record.
Of course, I don't own.
You're just the face.
I'm just the face of them. I don't own anything. But we've never raised anything. Everything's been built completely organically from the ground up. They've all been profitable from day one. And that's another thing that's very important. Because this is actually, we talk about fundraiser.com. A lot of people have this idea of business where the tech companies have ruined the ideas of business. People think that you can start an idea and then you just borrow loads of money and raise loads of money and buy a fancy office and get a smoothie machine and get smoothies and get bean bags so you can sleep at the office. Wow. And then just keep borrowing and spending everyone else's money. And that's a business. No, a business makes money. And I managed to launch all of my businesses with very little investment. So if you need investment from fundraiser.com, you can come and show me your business plan, but we're gonna analyze it and see what you really need that money for. If you can really pull it off without that money, or how that money will actually be spent. For some ideas and some businesses, you do need huge investment, but for a lot, you don't. I would argue nearly any company you want to launch, you could launch almost without investment. If you want to launch a coffee company and there was a particular type of bean and you needed money to get all of those beans from Colombia, and you need to package them all up and fly them all over to England, for example, I would say launch the coffee company, get some stills, get some pictures, launch it with no beans, advertise it, see how much you sell. If you sell a whole ton, now you have the money to import the beans. If you sell hardly any, you'll be glad you didn't bring the beans over, refund everyone, and just be done with it. Like, you can do it without the investment, but people will say, no, I want the investment. I want to bring all these beans. I want to spend $1 million before I even do anything. Do you know the hardest business to start? You know what the hardest business in the world would be to start today?
Makeup, supplements, something like that.
Nope. Easy. The hardest business in the world to start today is a business I'm not going to start. Nobody's going to start. It's an airline. Not an airline, sorry. An airplane manufacturer. The reason is you have to invest in a factory, which is billions. You have to begin to make planes. You then have to go through 7 or 8 years of testing before you can sell a plane, right? So you've invested billions hoping you can make your first sale 8 years later. Then all of the current aircraft manufacturers have lobbied governments to prevent you turning up and selling anything. And then you have to produce a product which is better or cheaper than Boeing or Airbus, who have a massive monopoly on the market and understand the market very well and have deals with airlines already. So who are you going to sell to? Like, something on airline, nearly impossible to start a brand new aircraft manufacturer off the middle of nowhere. That's why you have these two names, only those two. Supplements, makeup would be easy for the same reason I said coffee. Makes sense. That's right. You can just sell from the beginning. So I'm very interested to see people's business ideas and talk to them frankly. And my goal with this 50 million is to spend it all across a couple years. But my primary goal is to get my fingers in some very interesting projects myself and make sure they're monumentally successful. And when we said earlier about the 95%, 5%, I have that because any project I'm invested in, I can mention. So I could just mention, like, I have monumental power because I have attention on me.
Andrew, the game has changed a bit since you blew up using short form the way you did.
I changed everything. They're never going to let that happen again. I was a glitch in the matrix. TikTok will never allow anyone to do that again. It was me. They're never going to allow anyone to pull that off a second time. I know they've changed a lot because of me, specifically because of me. I know that for a fact. When they were dragged into the Senate and TikTok was getting a grilling, they were saying my name.
Really?
TikTok have gone through TikTok have developed extremely advanced artificial intelligence to try and keep me off their platform. Can't show my face. Even if I say nothing, if my voice you can't show, even my face, if you invert it and flip it, it recognizes it. They have tried so hard to keep me off TikTok. Yeah. It's crazy.
I've been told by people, maybe this is untrue, that Luke was instrumental in coming up with that strategy. Is there any truth to that?
It was the war room. It was some war room guys, and we sat down and decided to try and conquer the world, and we came up with a plan. Because traditionally, before I did what I did, everyone was worried about people using their clips because they wanted all the ad rev. So they didn't want people to use their clips, and they would copyright strike everybody. And we were basically the first people to say, use all our stuff, we don't care. And a lot of people have tried to copy it since, but nobody's been able to do it like we did.
If the music industry did it, it would change music forever.
Yeah. Oh, completely.
Because they're so stringent on getting the ad revenue. It's like, if you just let people use your songs,
that's right,
it would take off.
That's right, exactly. But everyone's so desperate for the ad revenue. But we were unique in our approach also because I don't need money. It's different when you don't need money, right? Yeah. But I know it will never be done again. And there's a lot of people who think they can copy it, but also there's another missing magic ingredient, and that's I'm interesting. Yeah. And I'm funny and handsome.
You post 40,000 times a day on TikTok, but you're uninteresting.
No, it doesn't matter. Nobody cares, right? And I'm also very polarizing. And we chose my most polarizing clips, which went super viral. However, there's no light without dark. That's why I got attacked for being a misogynist. That's why I first got canceled. That's why I ended up in jail, because I put out the most polarizing stuff where I was saying the most crazy things. And then there's also another downside to it, because I'd have a clip, which is a minute long, and let's say all the people who are sharing clips of me are rewarded for going as viral as possible, that means that they're rewarded in virality. They're not rewarded in, or they're not that interested in my reputation. So if they can take it out of context and make me look bad, but they earn, even if they're on my side, then the MSM picked that clip up.
Yeah.
So in a way, a lot of the clips of me taken out of context and misunderstood by the media began by people being paid by me.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's no light without
You paid
dark.
for your own destruction. In
Well,
a way. It's
yeah,
interesting.
but then if everything that went out wasn't controversial, perhaps I wouldn't be where I am. Like, there's no light without dark. I don't believe the yin and the yang. It's white and black. They're linked. You can't have one without the other. You know, so it is what it is.
If someone wanted to blow up today to the same extent that you did, assuming that they'll never get as big as you, obviously, what strategy would you use today to blow up?
Well, you need an equal and opposite force to compete against. Newton's third law. There has to be an equal and opposite force in all things. So if you don't want to sell your soul to the matrix, then you need to be competing against something. You need to have an enemy. You can't be a hero without a villain. So I speak a lot of truth against systems, and that's one of the reasons why people listen to me and watch me. However, that puts me in a lot of personal danger. So it has to be, are you prepared to be in a lot of personal trouble for your channel? If not, you need to find some kind of enemy. You need to find something to oppose against. And not in a bitchy reaction video clickbait gay way, but in a genuine way that you're going to have a whole contingent of people who believe in you and understand you're doing the right thing, and another contingent of people who strongly disagree with you and try and disavow you, because those two opposite forces coming together is what creates the splash. You need the two opposite sides.
It's funny you say this because this is actually one of the main methods I teach people to go viral, and it is extremely effective. So if you're someone who has a business and you want to launch your personal brand, just DM me the word viral on Instagram. Maybe we can set up a call and I'll help you out. Yeah. How do you remain countercultural as someone who shapes culture?
Well, I'm very lucky that the Matrix is trying very hard to shape it in the opposite direction. I'm very glad they exist. I mean, they keep giving me things to talk about. They give me the Paris Olympics. They give me more gay bullshit. They give me plenty to go. They punish me for it. But you need an equal and opposite force to compete against. And then you get to be a hero against a villain, right? But there's a personal risk involved in that. So you also have to be brave enough to take the personal risk. You have to put your money where your mouth is to some degree. And I also think the internet's changed regarding, you have to have a lot more skin in the game now. You remember like 10 years ago where you could rent a Lambo and just stand next to a rented Lambo and pretend you're rich. And people gave a shit. Wow, a Lambo. Like, that's all gone. Nobody cares. Everyone's overexposed to wealth. Everyone's seen fast cars. Everyone's seen boats. Everyone's seen Mykonos. Nobody gives a shit. Now I think you need to have skin in the game. Like, the thing that makes my brother and I so powerful is that we lead from the front and people see it. The Matrix arrests us to damage us, not knowing they help us. Because we show we mean what we say, and we lead from the front, and we show that we're brave and that we'll die first. We have skin in the game. Our lives are on the line. That's interesting. You know, so but not everyone's prepared to take that risk. But if you were to say what the fastest way to blow up is, I'd say find an issue that you believe is wrong, that has a lot of support behind it, and go to war with it. That's what I believe. And start to try and convince people slowly just how dangerous that ideology is, because you need an equal and opposite force.
Becoming too big. You've said in the past you don't want to be too big. Maybe you rejected certain podcast or interview offers. What steps did you take to mitigate that? Can you go into specifics?
Yeah, so
I thought that you were going to go on Joe Rogan the moment you got out of jail.
yeah, I deliberately, I think I could have done Rogan before, and Rogan got in a lot of trouble when he told the truth about COVID. And I decided not to do Rogan before I went to jail, not because I didn't want to do Rogan. I can't wait to eventually do it and talk to the guy. It's because I thought it would put me in jail. Before I went to jail, I was trying not to go to jail because I knew this next life. They already canceled me. It didn't work. I knew next was jail. I was saying it on every podcast I did. So I turned down a lot of the big ones because I thought it would save me.
Was that the main one you were talking about?
Rogan was the biggest one.
Yeah.
But I was wrong. I mean, it turns out the only way out is through. I'd already got too big. So Now, my attitude's slightly different. Now my attitude is fuck them, all guns blazing, go out. I've tried to reason with the alligator. It bit me anyway. So now I'm just going to go out in a blaze of glory. However, I do believe that the culture is changing. And I do believe I've been instrumental in that. I really believe, without being arrogant, that I have changed the culture of the Western world. And I believe that there's a whole lot more people now who agree with me and my way of thinking than there was at the beginning of my fame. And that they're going to struggle really to keep trying to pin things on me. Every single time I do Piers Morgan or every single time the MSM writes about me, they have to remove comments because it's just endless people saying you're full of shit, you're lying about Tate. Millions of people. So it's getting harder and harder for them. So now the only way out is through. And you become a poison frog, right? You become a poison pill, just like Trump is. Whether they let him win or lose, they suffer. Whether they put me in jail or let me go, they suffer. If I walk, they look ridiculous for ever doing this. If they put me in jail, they look ridiculous for putting me in jail and they know it's a matrix attack. I win either way. I just have to be prepared to accept a little bit of jail, which I'm prepared to do because I lead from the front and I'm not a coward. So if I have to go to jail, I'll go to jail.
Let's speak hypothetically for a moment. So let's imagine there's a guy called Carbon Boss or Top Striker, perhaps.
Okay.
In this scenario, how would you address a case that he had if it was similar to yours?
Well, the whole thing about any kind of crime that is sexual is that they use these crimes to damage your reputation because they're heinous, right? If they accuse you of tax evasion, nobody cares. It doesn't damage your reputation. They accuse you of sexual crimes, one, to damage your reputation, two, because they're extremely subjective. Like, what is sexual assault nowadays? Like, sexual assault is looking at a girl wrong nowadays. And if you look at a girl wrong and make her feel uncomfortable, and she makes a claim against you to HR, I was in the room with him, he didn't touch me, but the way he looked at me, that's sexual assault. So it's extremely subjective. And third, it's extremely easy for them to drum these things up because they can lie by omission. They can omit facts. They can remove a large part of the picture to make you look like a predator. So they can call 1,000 women who you knew, and 999 can say you're a nice guy. And they can find one who says you're not. And then they can remove the 999 from the picture and make you sound like you're a predator who's been predating on females your whole life.
They can also omit text messages.
Oh
right?
yeah, they can
and
omit.
kind of paint them
Of course,
in a certain
yeah,
way.
they could say they can get the one text message where you said "come here, bitch" and say you're horrible, and remove all the ones where you bought her flowers and paid her rent and all. They remove all that. They lie by omission. And what's really interesting about this, especially when they're going through your history trying to find somebody to use against you, which is effectively what they do. And it's a bribe. They call all these girls and say, look, you can get a book deal. The media will pay you. You can get a lot of money if you turn on this guy, especially if it's a girl you don't talk to anymore. And especially if you're famous and rich and her rent's due. It's tempting for these women. What's even worse is that a large percentage of the population, I don't know, 10%, 15% would advertise themselves and admit to being mentally deficient in some way. They'd say they have ADHD or they take Xanax to sleep or they're on antidepressants or they're sad. Like, what contingent of the population are mentally ill? What contingent of them are depressed? What contingent of them are fucking liars? Crazy? Weird? Like, if you call 1,000 people, you're talking to 100 weirdos anyway. You only need one. Look at the one they got Trump with, Jean Carroll. She's lost her mind. So once they decide to use a sexual crime to damage your reputation, once they understand it's absolutely subjective, and then once they understand they can lie by omission, they only need one idiot to ruin your life, it's a weapon they can use on any man on the planet. No man on the planet is safe from this. You don't need to have even had sex with women. You could just been in the same room as them. I mean, Jean Carroll got Trump on a conviction. She couldn't even remember where or when. Who even says it happened at all? So the whole thing is clown world, and the absolute subjectivity of it is what's scary because they're going to pin any man with this bullshit. Yeah. I think that it's truly upsetting that we're now in a position where when I see a girl cry rape, I instantly go, nah. That's the truth. I don't believe any of it anymore. So if you're truly raped or you're truly sexually assaulted, you should be very angry at the women who lie. Because now you're going to get even less sympathy than ever before because most men, every time they hear these accusations, instantly decide they're a lie now because so many women have lied. The girls have cried wolf so many times that now nobody believes you anymore. Mm. You know what's even more scary? We talked earlier about women and how easily they can be psyoped. That's true. So what's even scarier is you can have a woman who never thought she was sexually assaulted until she talks to the cops. And they're like, you know, he's a predator. Well, he was fine to me. Was he? Tell me about your relationship. Blah, 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 blah. And why didn't he want you going out with those guys? Well, he said I couldn't go out and drink with men. Did you feel like he was controlling? Well, not really. But he didn't let you go out and drink with men. So he would stop you from going out. Well, yeah, I guess he would stop me from going out. After 3 hours of interview, you'd be surprised how much of a victim they feel like. They'll get psyoped into being a fucking victim.
Have you heard of the Lost in the Mall experiment?
No.
So in the 1990s, a researcher took a group of 24 people and gave them a book, and it contained 4 stories from their childhood written by their like friends and family. And most of the group said they don't remember. Oh, and one of the stories is a totally made up story about them getting lost when they were young in a mall. Most of the group, about 3/4, said they don't ever remember getting lost, but 6 people remembered it vividly and even added details of the event that never happened in the first place.
Wow.
To go off what you're saying, basically, if you can implant false memories into a quarter of people with one meaningless story, imagine what you can do over time with drugs. And even more powerful, what if the person wants to believe what they're being told is true? And they're told again and again each time with more details and more reason to believe a lie.
Wow. I've never heard that before, and that is, Bo, you just nailed it.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. So if you tell these people, if you were abused, you're going to be financially rewarded, and then you convince them they're abused. It's like,
If you can implant a false memory anyway, without reason for it,
That's right.
then imagine like when you give reasons and drugs.
No man is safe.
Yeah.
Because women can also retrospectively remove consent. They can consent to something and then 10 years later decide actually they didn't consent and take it away. So you never even have consent ever. No man is safe. They've developed society and these claims to be this way so they can attack any man at random. Why is it always the men who are against the establishment who get attacked? Why does Assange get a rape charge? I have one. Trump has one. Russell Brand has one. Everyone who talks against the system gets rape charges. But everyone who works for the system, even though they go on Epstein's plane to the fucking island, even though they go to these parties where they all do drugs and a whole bunch of stories that come out about the things that happen there, they never get any charges. Only the people who talk against the system. And there's still people who will sit there and believe it. There's still people who go, Andrew's a human trafficker. Have you seen a single video of a single woman accusing me of anything? In fact, you've only seen them defending me. Have you seen a single picture of a victim? Have you seen anything? You've seen nothing but a fucking headline they've made up, like the Lost in the Mall. And it's complete clown world that there's people out there who after COVID will still repeat verbatim what the MSM tell them. And we talk about confirmation bias. Well, that's because they already don't like me. So now their feelings of dislike for me are being confirmed. Exactly what they want. They want their feelings validated. They want their emotions to be true. So it doesn't matter if I get innocent or guilty. They're going to call me a human trafficker if they dislike me.
That's anyway. What the headline said.
That's right. They're going to call me it anyway. What they don't understand is I'm going to lean into it so heavily. I cannot wait for this all to be over and I start saying world's most famous human trafficker and walking around with a whole bunch of hotties. I'm going to do all that. I'm going to lean into it. I'm going to be that human trafficker. How'd you make all your money, human trafficking? I'm going to just talk about it. I can't wait till they come up to me and I'll be in a Lambo and they run up. Hey, how'd you get rich? Like human trafficking. You should try it. I'm just going to own it now. I don't give a fuck. I'm the bad guy. I don't care. But yeah, it's all clown world. But it's very, very scary to be a world and a man today. And it's very scary to be a successful one. It's truly scary. I had a very rich guy in America once say to me, he said, I agree with you, Andrew. I want to have kids. But you know what? I just don't trust the women. They're going to destroy my net worth. They're going to take all my money. They're going to wreck me. But I want to have kids. I said, bro, you need to fly somewhere else. Use a fake name. Fly to fuck knows where in South America. Have kids there with a fake name, go visit your family once a month, and be done with it. Because I completely understand why you're not going to risk, you're worth 100 million, you're not going to risk 50 million on some bimbo who's been through God knows what and how many men have used her, and you're going to risk all your money on her to have progeny now. I completely get it. I understand it's too big of a risk for you. So you need to get another passport and have kids somewhere else. You can't even have kids safely in America anymore without looking to be wrecked by some psycho woman who finds out she's a victim. He only bought me one Hermes bag and I was home all day and all he did was work. Imagine women complain about having an easy life. So you stay home, I'll go work all the time. He doesn't pay me attention. Poor me. You can't win. You work, she complains. You're busy, she complains. What do you want? What does she want you to do? Unbelievable. Bro, the world's gone crazy.
To go off hypotheticals again, Andrew, you said in the past that you only share 10% of the interesting and pertinent information you have publicly. Let's go into some topics or opinions that Top Striker might be willing to share. If someone had the cure for cancer, would we ever know?
If someone had the cure for cancer, it'd be extremely expensive. I do think they would probably advertise that cancer could be cured. However, it'd be extremely expensive and difficult to access. I don't think we currently have the cure for all cancers. But when we say cancer, a lot of people are confused because you say the cure for cancer, but there's so many different kinds of cancers and they're actually very different diseases. So you can't have the cure for all. I do think there are some we can cure. However, I think it would be extremely expensive and difficult to access in the least medium term.
Hypothetically, has Alex Jones mostly been right?
Yes. Alex Jones is a hero. He's a hero for the culture. He's a hero because he's a man who's not afraid to put his money where his mouth is. He's not afraid to say what he believes to be true. Nobody's going to be right 100% of the time. However, he's been right more often than the MSM have ever been. Everyone's going to bring up the odd thing he got wrong. Yeah, that's fine. He's more accurate than the BBC have ever been. Who's going to bring up the things they got wrong? Never. Alex Jones has mostly been right. He's a patriot, he's a hero, and he needs to be watched by everybody.
If you knew who was really in power, would you say it? Okay. If you did drugs in the past, would you say it?
I'd be honest. I'm always honest about myself. And I've never done any drugs ever. I mean, caffeine, nicotine, they're drugs technically, but they're the only drugs I indulge in. I've never tried any narcotics ever. I want to go back quickly about the who's in power thing. Because, no, forget it. Never mind. Let's do it again when I'm out of my court cases. And,
if you were married to only one woman, would you ever say it?
yeah, I think if I was going to get married to one woman, I'd be proud of it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with loving one woman either. I just do believe that the world does change at a certain echelon. Like Trump has 3 baby mamas, Elon has 4. Like you get to a certain level of wealth and fame, and life's just a little bit different.
Yeah.
Like one man, one woman, family, beautiful. It's the bedrock of society. I respect it. I understand it. But you know, when you're at a certain echelon of fame and wealth, you have 60 cars. I'm not telling everyone to have 60 cars. I understand that the world can't work when everyone has 60 cars. I get that. I understand that my reality is slightly different than others. So, yeah, I don't want to sound elitist when I say I'm allowed to have more than one. I know that sounds terrible and elitist, but perhaps the better way of saying it is there are women who are prepared to share me because of my status and wealth. And that's their decision, and they're full-grown adults, and it would be misogynistic for me to think that they're not allowed to make their own decisions. So if they decide to share the top G, then they're going to share the top G.
If you became an atheist, would you ever say it?
I was an atheist for a very long time, and I advertised the fact I was an atheist, and I thought I was a smart ass, but I was wrong. Because there's equal and opposite force, Newton's third law, and there's enough evil in the world for you to see that there must be a force for good, and that force for good is God. And there's lots of different ways to look at God. You can look at God from the holy text, you can look at God as a man in the sky, or you can look at God as something that humans themselves embody and create here on earth. I think I've said this before, but if you did you hear me talk about getting stranded on a desert island? Yeah.
God saved you.
God saved you, right, exactly. If you get stranded on a desert island and the people there decide not to murder you because their God doesn't believe in murder, then their God, whatever he's called, saved your life. God can be embodied here on earth. Heaven can be created on earth if you have enough people who believe in God and act in a way. And God, even as an idea, if you have enough people doing the right things because of the idea of God, then the idea of God is God because it's making people act a certain way and life is a certain way because of it. So there's a whole bunch of ways you can approach the idea of God. But the fact that evil is real and Satanism is real, the devil is certainly real, there has to be an equal and opposite force, which has to be God.
If you ever killed someone, would you say it on the internet?
No, it depends if I'd already done the time. If I hadn't done the time for murder yet, I'd have to be a bit more careful what I said.
What topics or groups do you know with experience not to fuck with? That might have to be a pass too.
Well, the groups that you'll get in most trouble for fucking with, well, Islam is certainly one of them because they're very serious about their religion. You have to be very careful what you say. The Jews are another because the Jews primarily operate by canceling and debanking and trying to remove your reputation and your platforms. LGBT is another. They're a mafia. Bro, the LGBT is a mafia. When you say anything deemed homophobic, they will come for you. And you'll lose your advertisers, your sponsors, everything. They'll come for you very hard. But then you could say that about anyone. I mean, if I were to sit online and if I were to sit here and say enough bad things about certain world leaders, they'd get me too. Like murder happens and accidents happen and people die. If I became a super anti-China advocate, which I never would, but I'm sure sooner or later I'd run into some kind of accident. People think that's crazy to believe, but I'm telling you it's true. That's just how the world works. It depends how much damage you do. Your ability to speak freely is directly correlated to your insignificance. If I was talking bad about China and nobody cared, nothing would happen. If I was talking bad about China and everyone gave a shit, and China was starting to feel the heat, they are only going to feel the heat for so long before they say, who is this guy? Where is he? Send Xiaoling and fucking Liu Kang and dragon kick him out of here. Because murder solves problems, right? They just tried it with Trump. If you believe that people don't consider murder, you're an idiot. If drug dealers are going to sit around and discuss and consider murder to control a street corner, you think people aren't going to discuss murder to control a country and control an entire economy? Of course they are. America murders people all day, every fucking day. Because all we do is drone strike people and kill people. Murder is happening all the time. It's a political solution, is murder. Because violence is a political solution. So you have to be careful. How much damage you do to the system is directly correlated to how high a price you'll pay. Very interesting.
The World Economic Forum, you wouldn't say much about this when you were interviewed last. Have you learned anything new? And would you tell us if you had?
Well, let's break down what the World Economic Forum means. Let's approach it and pretend we know nothing. We both know nothing. We're dummies. World, global, economic, money. Forum. So it's the world's money, right? So as dummies who know nothing, and we understand this is a forum that's discussing the world's money. What is money always interested in? Or what a company is always interested in? Profit, more money. So are they interested in the sanctity of society? Are they interested in the sanctity of God? Are they interested in the beauty of the family? Or are they interested in just making more money? So then you look at certain ideas like unchecked immigration, mass immigration, which lowers the wages across the population as a whole because people come in, they're prepared to work harder for less money. That seems like the kind of thing that a company would like. It's bad for the people, but it's good for the company because they can hire cheaper labor. So now you have the World Economic Forum who want to make more money, which perhaps would be behind certain agendas like unchecked immigration or mass immigration because it lowers the prices of things. How does the democratic process work? Well, the democratic process works via money, right? If you have two candidates, the candidate that raises the most money is usually the one who wins because they can advertise and they can go on tour and they can pay for clever social media managers. Also, they can hire very fancy PR firms. I know we talked earlier about PR firms and how they're a mafia. But it's very interesting. If you have two candidates and one hires a PR firm, that PR firm is not only going to say good things about the candidate who hired them, it's going to say bad things about the candidate who didn't, right? So the one with the most money gets a huge advantage in media. This is also pretending the people with the money or who gave money to the candidate don't own the media, because once you understand that, it actually gets much worse. So now we have the World Economic Forum, who can control democracy via their money, who are interested in certain principles which degrade society so they can make more money. So does that make them a scary and dangerous organization that works against the interests of the common man? This is assuming I know nothing. I would argue yes.
You were arrested for accusations of human trafficking around the same time the Epstein files came out.
Yeah, interesting, huh?
Any comments on that?
Yeah, it's super interesting. Yeah, the day that all the Epstein files came out, if you Googled human trafficking, it only showed my name. What's also very interesting is all the people who seem to be very interested in my case and seem to believe I'm a terrible human trafficker have no problems with the southern border being wide open and people being trafficked across the southern border. They have no problems with the orphanages in Ukraine being emptied. You know, they walk into orphanages in Ukraine, take all the little girls because they're little Barbie dolls, little blonde-haired, blue-eyed white girls. You didn't hear about this? Look this up, my friend. Who takes them? Yeah, which island do they end up on? Oh, that's right. I know a lot more. What I try now to do is allude to things so people can do their own research. Because if I say too much here, then I get shot, right? But yeah, there's endless human trafficking everywhere, all over the planet. They're gonna say I'm a human trafficker for fucking TikTok accounts. Biggest scam on the planet. Absolute garbage. Everyone knows it's garbage. Real human trafficking happens all the time because human beings are a resource. I mean, men are a resource for their strength and capability. Women are a resource for their beauty. So there's a lot of human trafficking taking place, and it's disgusting and it's heinous, of course. But then again, like most things in the world, like most laws in the West at least, they've made it so subjective it doesn't even make sense anymore. Not only am I accused of human trafficking, I'm accused of human trafficking via the Loverboy method, which means I was very nice to people. So please understand, if you're a man who talks to a woman negatively and you intimidate her, then you're a horrible person and you're aggressive and you're mean, and that's a crime. If you talk to her very nicely, then it's the Loverboy method. So how the fuck do you talk to anyone?
You can't talk to women.
You can't talk to women. That's right. You can't talk to them. If you talk to them, you're going to jail. It's all a setup. It's all garbage. And they've designed the law this way on purpose. You know, Middle Eastern countries do this. Being gay is illegal in the Middle East. However, if you go to the Middle East and you spend some time in the Middle East, you see there are gay people in the Middle East. Nobody cares what you do in your own bedroom in your own house. What you're not allowed to do is degrade society and attack the family unit and advertise and push the idea of LGBT. That's what you're not allowed to do. So the law exists and they rarely enforce it unless you do something that pisses them off. It's the same with most laws in the West. They have all these laws that everyone breaks. You're a human trafficker, human trafficker, human trafficker. Every man has said something they can use against him for human trafficking in a court file. But they don't care because it's not really a crime. It's only if you annoy them that they come. It's the same. All laws are subjective. Law isn't real. Courts aren't real. It's all made up. It's bullshit. And depending how much they want to get you, depends on what verdict you get. Look at the Trump case. I mean, I think it's pretty childish for people to believe that if they have one of the most high profile people in the world, the law is the same as if they get a nobody. The law functions very well at low level. He stole bread. CCTV stole bread. Punishment for stealing is 1 to 2 years, jail. Great. That's how the law works. When you're very famous, it becomes a show trial and you start to have rippling effects. Your innocence or your guilt has a rippling effect on the reputation of a country, has a rippling effect on how the law is applied in the future, has a rippling effect on society and how you're viewed, has a rippling effect on making that person a hero or destroying that person's reputation. Do you think in those high-level trials, they really just leave it all up to a judge? Some guy who went to school, who can affect the entire fabric of culture, let him choose it all. No, there's conversations about what's good and what's bad and how it should all end. So at the highest level, like Trump, let's not even talk about me because I'm in the middle of my case right now. We're in the country I'm in the middle of a case in. Trump, he understood the game well enough to know that they didn't go through all that fucking mess to find him innocent. They didn't leave it up to the judge for the evidence of the law. It's a fucking setup. It's a scam. That's how it goes.
If you had concrete evidence of God, demons, or aliens, would you reveal it?
Yes, all three. Yes. But I think the least impactful would be aliens. I think people's minds now are so fried from TikTok brain that if there was aliens who landed on the planet, no one would care 24 hours later. Literally. Like, think of all the crazy things that have happened this year. They tried to assassinate Trump. There was that.
I considered not asking you about that because I assumed people would forget about it.
Yeah.
It's been like 2 weeks.
Yes, 2 whole weeks. They nearly killed the president. 2 weeks. Boring. Jews in tunnels. Supposedly there was aliens in Miami. They shot up that mall in Moscow. Like, all this crazy shit's happened. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. It's like one day. Boring, next, boring. We have TikTok brain now. Everyone's got permanent ADHD. It's just next, next, next. We're waiting for the next crazy thing to happen.
Yeah.
It's kind of scary because it allows them to get away with a lot because we can't stay emotionally interested long enough to change anything. It's even the same. You can look at it this way. But I remember when I was young, when I was your age, there'd be one song for the summer, or one song for the year, and you'd wait for it to come on the radio because you couldn't access it anytime you wanted. Now, like, new song a day, everyone's bored of everything in 2 minutes, and the world's speeding up, which is why, tying back to why traditional education is such a waste of time and why we have to update our school every single day, because learning something 10 years old 10 years ago was not nearly as bad as learning something 10 years old today.
Yeah.
Is it Murphy's Law, where computer power doubles? The world's speeding up, and everything's happening faster than ever before. And society is going to degrade faster than ever before. It's exponential. So it's like society started to degrade, started to degrade, started to degrade. It's just going to go off a cliff once Girl Boss wins. Please no. But please no. But everything's going to be going quicker and quicker. And the rise and fall of empires used to be, 3,000 years, and then it was 500 years, and then it was 250 years. And soon the rise and fall of empires is going to be a decade. You're going to have a 10 years of prosperity before it's fucked. You have to move again. I think within my lifetime, it's going to get to the point where each country is only good for 10 to 15 years before you have to find somewhere else to hide. It's going to get crazy.
Not that people will care for too long, but do you believe aliens exist?
I believe. Well, you have the religious convictions, you have your religious beliefs, and then you have your logical beliefs. But logically, I think it would be extremely hubristic to believe that we're the only life in this universe. I mean, it's a pretty big place. If what we understand about space to be true, then as large as it is, there has to be life again somewhere else. Whether we'll ever encounter them or speak to them, or whether we'll ever know for sure, I can't say. Whether they're here now, I've heard theories on that. I don't know. But I'd like to think as big as the universe is, it would be extremely arrogant to believe we're the only life that's ever sprung up, intelligent life. That can't be the case.
Which country would you trust to meet aliens?
So they'd all try, and instantly every country would be trying to use it for military purposes and to increase their standing on Earth. So like if the Russians met the aliens, they want the alien technology so that they get to rule the world. It would all be power dynamics. So I think you'd like to choose a country that has no real interest or capability for or possibility of conquering the world. But then all those countries are already part of a domain, right? If you choose a small little country, then they're part of the Western Hemisphere, or they're part of the Chinese domain. They're already part of empires already. Difficult one to answer. You'd want one that's quite liberal and quite open and quite honest, which had no intention of conquering the world, which wasn't too heavily influenced by a Western or Eastern empire. It's a hard one to find.
I think war and adventure have been the outlets for men with nothing to lose, historically speaking. I believe space travel is likely the new area for the continued health of humanity. How does this relate to male optimism? Do you think space gives men the opportunity to do better?
Well, men have this attitude. Men have to build their value. So men are prepared to take more risks than women in certain regards, because women have to protect their value. Women are born important and have to protect it and not fuck it up. Men are born as absolute nobodies. So we're prepared to go and take a risk to become a somebody, which is why we're more likely to explore than a woman. A woman just needs to not be too argumentative, don't sleep around, and find a partner while she's young and pretty. A man has nothing of value and has to go and get it all. So it's big risk, big reward when it comes to exploration. So I think that, yeah, there's a renewed optimism for space, surely, because we've explored the world now. But there's still a whole bunch of exploring in the world that can be done. I mean, the oceans are still massively unexplored. I think that a lot of that exploration optimism or exploration adventure has now been taken away or has been diverted into financial conquest. I think the men of old who used to think, I want to go and explore unchecked lands, are now thinking, I want to get rich instead. So it's the same masculine energy for conquest, for acquisition, for risk reward, for doing dangerous and hard things so that you can prove your competence and your capability to other people. But now it's about getting rich as opposed to seeing new places. I think it's the same attitude. And perhaps it will switch back when we start going to space in a serious way.
What's interesting to you about space travel?
Space is so, I mean, like, I love the idea of us being able to move planet to planet and see all these different things. But when you actually look into space and you realize how far everything is away, it's kind of disheartening. It's like the next nearest sun is however many light years. It's crazy. Like, even if we manage to travel at the speed of light, we still won't see anything. It's still so much too far away for the human lifetime. And it's going to be, at the speed of light, it's millions of years to get somewhere. It's incredibly large. So it actually disheartens me in a lot of ways. I think space would be far more interesting if we could go to the places. But perhaps one day we'll work it out. I'm not sure. That's for someone smarter than me in the future to handle. Perhaps we'll ditch these meat sacks and move into cybernetic minds, and time won't have any effect on our consciousness. Perhaps there's a lot of things that will happen in the future. It's very interesting. But for now, just even the idea of being a multi-planetary species is extremely exciting, and I'm glad that Elon's in charge of it. I have a lot of respect for Elon because he didn't have to do the things he's doing. He was rich, and he could have just retired. He could have just been head in a stick and ran around on a yacht and slept with women. And instead, he's decided to solve some of the biggest problems that humanity is facing. And he's also allowed free speech to return to the internet, which has literally saved the world. If it wasn't for X, the amount of stories you wouldn't even know the truth about are incredible. I look at right now, stories happen, X happens. Look, Trump's assassination. They say he fell over. They say he fell over in the MSM. It's really crazy how they try and spin everything, and you wouldn't know the truth of anything if it wasn't for X. So Elon's genuinely not only turning humanity into a multiplanetary species, he's actually saving the world. He's a fantastic guy. He'll go down in history. I really believe that free speech is that important.
Do you see yourself traveling to space in the next 5 to 10 years?
You know,
you said in the past you would never do something like skydiving.
You know, this is where the black in me comes out.
Yeah.
Because being brown is extreme enough. My life is extreme. Cops want me in jail. Baby mamas are stressing me. I don't need to be going in the ocean with sharks. I don't need to be going to space. You white people love these things. I'm getting racist. You all windsurfing and jumping out of planes. And all my white friends who are rich, they're like, yeah, I'm going shark diving in the Great Barrier Reef. Why the fuck would you want to go down in the ocean and see? There's sharks. You're finding the shark. You're going with the sharks on purpose. I don't get it. There's too much melanin in me for any of them activities. I don't want to go to space. To do any of that. I'll stay here. It's fine. My life's extreme. When this finishes and I have to go down the stairs and walk out to my car, I'm nervous enough. They might try and kill me right then and right there. My head's already on a swivel. My heart's already beating. I've already got enough adrenaline. I don't need sharks. I don't need space. Don't need to jump out of any planes. Very fine on the ground with the door locked.
In the Tales of Wudon, you conjure a story where Master Po, who represents your father, encounters a wild tiger. But instead of fighting, they come to a mutual agreement and decide that the real enemy is the cold. What two groups do you believe are fighting where the real enemy is in fact something unseen? And you can give the obvious one, but I'm sure there.
Yeah, there's the Christian Muslim against the others. That's an obvious one. But let me give a more YouTube-friendly answer. But before the real enemy is the cold, correct. So a lot of people, even with my brother and I, because he's Christian, I'm Islamic, right? So they'll sit and say, how can you disagree so heavily on how you believe in and follow God and still be brothers? The real enemy is godlessness, which is the cold. So you can have a tiger and Master Po unite against the cold. So the point I'm trying to make is before we argue about which God is the real God, and before we argue about how you should pray to God, and before we argue about which holy book, what we need to do is get rid of all the godlessness in society. People need to believe in something higher than themselves, believe that they're being watched, believe they have a duty and an obligation to perform. We need to fix all of that first before we worry about the details on which God is which. So I think that the biggest problem in the world we have today is the atheists and those who are godless, because they still have their religions. They don't realize their religion is just government. They just believe in everything the government and the TV says. Their religion's LGBT and COVID and feminism and abortion. So they're just as religious as a religious person, but they're believing in bullshit instead of believing in God. They'll sit there and say, you've been brainwashed and you believe in God. Oh my God. You're literally marching around begging for babies to die. And you think you're a better person than a religious person? So they have their religion. When I was an atheist, I was quite proud of it. But I don't think people are smart enough to be atheists. I really don't think there's very few people on the planet who can remain balanced and morally objective and competent and be atheistic. I really think the world needs God. I don't think most people are smart enough to be an atheist. I think that there's a percentage of people who could be an atheist and still be pretty sensible. But the rest just seem to fill that gap in their soul with bullshit. And they should believe in God instead.
So I have 5 hard questions for you. The first one is, this is one of my favorite questions. So Apple, when they were hiring an executive in their final round of hiring an employee, they asked this one question. If you were a pizza delivery man, how would you benefit from scissors?
From scissors? Never been asked this question. Also, pizza delivery man, how I benefit from scissors. Well, this is how my mind works. I carry them in my pocket as a weapon in case I got robbed. That's how I benefit from scissors.
Robbed in general or robbed on the job?
Robbed on the job. I'd carry the scissors as a weapon to defend myself. That's how I benefit from scissors. What's the actual answer?
So a lot of people say things like cut the pizza, cut the boxes, maybe defend yourself on the job. But the other answer is kind of thinking outside the box of you're given an opportunity and can you use that opportunity for something other than the thing you're doing,
Got it.
right? So can you make origami?
Yeah.
Can you sell the scissors? You know, can you take the things you're given in life and kind of remove it from that?
So it's nothing to do with the pizza anymore. It's to do with just the fact that you're a person moving around with scissors.
Yeah,
Very
exactly.
interesting. Very interesting way to think. Very
Yeah.
interesting.
It's a really interesting one. I've asked so many people this, and
Yeah,
only one or two have said like sell the scissors or
Ah,
something. You know?
interesting. Well, I'd carry them in my pocket as a weapon. That's what I would do. I'm telling you what I would do. That's what I do. They'd say, "Here's your scissors," and I'd say, "Okay, bad part of town. I got you."
That works. Do you think there's life after death?
There certainly is life after death because people mention you after you're gone, like we just spoke about my father. So that's a form of life. So you do live forever if you leave a large enough impact. We talked about Napoleon and Genghis Khan, Julius Caesar. So you do live forever if you leave a large enough impact. So life after death does exist in that regard. I mean, what is life besides people recognizing you or respecting your consciousness? I'm alive now because everyone in this room says, "Ah, look at him." And you think about me, you talk about me, and respect me as a person. If I was an idea instead of a physical entity, am I any less alive? So life certainly exists after death. From the religious perspective, I guess we're all going to find out, aren't we? But what you can do is be fantastic enough on this planet to make sure that you do have a life after death, even regardless of the religious connotations. So just do your very best and have children and let them be a good representation of you and leave a good mark and be discussed. And then you're going to live forever anyway.
What do you believe humans from the 25th century will think of humans today?
Really good question. I think there's going to be a lot of things that we currently do that they're going to see as barbaric, and they're not going to understand how we manage to function as a society without the kind of control that will be implemented on humanity by then. So I'll give you a very quick example. So in the year 2500 or 25th century, everything will be controlled by machine mind. Everything will be extremely organized. Even the idea of the capability to drive, I think is going to be very crazy to them if you explain that you had a driver's license and it was a piece of paper and that you drove around and that if you broke the law, you had to be caught by accident or by coincidence. And if they caught you by coincidence, they took your piece of paper away. And then you could continue to drive afterwards. And unless you get caught again by coincidence, nothing will happen. And a lot of people lose their licenses and just continue to drive, and the car still starts just as normal. It's not like it is in the 25th century where your ability to start your car is directly linked to your AI chip in your brain, and once it's removed, your car doesn't move, and they can tell where you're going if you're trying to drive without license. No, it's all just big coincidences. Maybe, maybe not. All the different pieces of paper are different in all the different countries, and if you change country, none of the laws apply anymore, and that in fact your ban doesn't apply anymore. Cars crashed. Going to be amazing to them. So every time you got in your car, you took the risk that someone just crashed and killed you. And they'd be like, well, how did they stop cars crashing? Oh, we had white lines and a light when it was red, when it was green, and there was a white line. What if they drove across the white line? Yeah, then you die. And well, how did they stop crazy people driving? We didn't. How'd you stop drunk people driving? We didn't. How'd you stop tired people driving? We didn't. Drove and kind of luck, I guess. I mean, murder might be gone by then. So you just go out, someone might murder you. You know, people steal things. Just go in, they just take it. How do you stop them stealing it? Well, you really can't. You have to call the police and have to try and catch them after. And everything will seem so archaic.
Yeah.
So like, that's so unorganized. They're going to think, why didn't everyone just break the rules all the time? That's what they're going to think. They're thinking, why did anyone listen to anything? How did they even enforce anything? Now everything's enforced in advance or enforced instantly. Back then, there had to be a whole big investigation. And that's how I think they're going to view us. They're going to view it as just, how did anything get done? I view the world that way now. The reason I'm saying that is because I already view the world that way. When they talk about raising the taxes in the 1400s, I'm like, who the fuck collected or paid tax in 1400? Like, how did you make someone submit tax? I mean, okay, if you went to the land and they worked on the land, you could steal some of their shit, probably. But like in the city of London, how did they enforce tax code? In the 1930s, how did they move money? I hear about World War II soldiers sending money home. How? How did you convert your dollars to Deutschmarks? How did you do a bank transfer? How did you? And that's only 50, 60 years ago. I could probably look it up. And I don't know how they did it. So they're just going to think everything was extremely dangerous, extremely scary, extremely slow, Like, how did you move from England to Japan? Or you got on this contraption and you sat there and it went through the sky. Like, well, what if it crashed? Then you died. Like, it's going to be very like death will feel like it's right round the corner all of the time because they would have fixed all those problems by then.
Do you think it'll be a godless society?
Well, once AI gets to the point where it knows everything and it sees the future and it controls everybody, I think they'll probably see it as a god in some regard. It's all seeing, it's all knowing. You know, it's omnipresent. It's got the power to end any life it wants. It can just blow up your chip in your brain. You know, if you piss them off, that's how assassinations will work. Self-destruct, boom, he's gone. Next. So they're going to have something pretty close to God there on earth, and they're going to behave pretty well. They're certainly going to do their prayers, and they're going to do what they're supposed to do. Otherwise, they're not going to exist for very long.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Best piece of advice, I've had a lot of advice, but one of the pieces of advice I like is never scare a coward. If you scare a coward, the way they lash out is never honorable. Look at Keir Starmer right now. He's a coward and he's a bitch, and he's scared that the far right. He's scared that the nationalists are tired of his bullshit. So the way he's lashed out and destroyed everybody's freedoms in real time is because of his cowardice, his innate cowardice inside of him. If you scare a coward, if you scare a real man, he might stand up and confront you. If you scare a coward, he'll stab you in the back when you're not looking. So you should be very careful how you deal with cowards. They're the most treacherous. They're the ones who will betray you. And they have no honor or dignity or duty at all. They'll just do anything it takes to win, almost. It's very... Cowardice in and of itself is an insidious force, and you should stay very far away from it. I don't like having cowards around me. I don't like interacting with cowards. And if your enemy is a coward, you even have to be more careful than if he's a real man in many ways. If your enemy is a coward, you have to be very careful with how you deal with them, because the complete lack of honor and duty, and I would even say empathy inside of a coward, is quite remarkable.
Who's the most impressive person you've ever met?
Well, there's a lot of people who I find impressive, but some of the most impressive people I ever met were my dad's chess friends, just because of how high on the spectrum they were, but they still managed to function. But the things they remembered, the things they did were super impressive. I don't know if I've met anyone and been like, wow, that's hyper impressive. I can't say a name yet, but perhaps I'll meet someone someday. But I think everybody's good at different things, right? So someone might be impressive at one thing, and then I don't know. I don't think I've met anyone and been impressed by them. I don't think that's because I'm arrogant. I just think we're all human. We have 2 arms, 2 legs, and people are good at certain things, and that's good. I'm good at certain things. You're good at certain things. That's great.
It's actually a pretty common answer, I'll say.
Yeah.
I ask all my guests this, and a couple have said, I don't know.
Well, the remarkable thing about it is that you expect the upper echelons of society to be these remarkable people. You expect the famous or the rich or whoever to be remarkable people, but they're just people. And often their flaws are highlighted by the fact that you expect them to be more than they actually are. And nobody's really that impressive. It's the truth. Nobody's that impressive. Everybody has 2 arms, 2 legs, and everybody goes to sleep, and people get tired and they yawn, they sneeze, and nobody's that impressive at all. And I guess from the bottom, you have this belief that there's no way these people would be at the top unless they're actually better. But the truth is they're often not better. They're just lucky, or they had networking, or perhaps they worked harder. They're better at working. But there's no one watching this who's at the bottom echelons of society who does not have the genetic makeup to reach the top. You're just as good as most of the people at the top. In fact, all these WF Davos billionaire pieces of shit are actually fat fucking dorks. And they're not even strong. They're weak. The average dude on the street beats shit out of any of them. They're not genetic specimens. They're not amazing people. They're just well-networked, wealthy, old, fat dudes.
There's a reason they love the island.
There's a reason they love the island, because women don't even want them. Even with all their money, they can't get girls. So they have to go to the island. So like these people in charge of things are not impressive in any way. They're actually quite opposite most of the time, because a lot of the things that make you impressive, especially as a man, is the hardships. It's the fact you've been through difficult things and you have insight because of difficulty, and you've trained hard, or you've been through so many difficult things. A lot of these people at the top, their lives are so easy. They're just soft as shit. And they're really not that impressive to talk to or be around.
This is a few questions. So if you were on death row, what would your last meal be?
Would I eat a last meal? Probably. May as well. I don't know. I think the food I like now is based on the fact that it's healthy. Like, I like steak because I know it's good for me. But if you're on death row, I guess it doesn't matter. So you may as well just eat a whole bunch of junk. I guess you just eat a whole bunch of shit, wouldn't you? I mean, why not? cake and donuts and garbage. So I guess you just garbage your way out to the end. I can't think of a interesting answer. I probably should think of something more interesting, but that's probably what it would be.
What's the last song you'd want to hear on death row?
I guess it'd be one of my favorite songs. But I don't know. Because a lot of my favorite songs are love songs. But I don't think a love song is the way to go out on death row because it's too somber. You got to listen to something which is annoyingly happy, you know, to just make a point to the guards. So, what's that song by Wake Up, It's a Beautiful Morning? You know that song? Dun, 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 dun. Or something crazy. You got to listen to something that, and you just got to put a big smile on your face and listen to a really happy song and just get marched out to get executed. Just to like go out with a bang. At least we talked about living forever. At least make the guards stand around afterwards and go, "Fuck, is crazy." That guy. At least be their coolest story. You know, no point putting on something boring. You may as well put on something that makes them think. At least they'll tell everyone about you. You can live into eternity forever as the guy who put on the crazy song and ate all the chocolate cake and was smiling on his way out. Gonna die anyway. You might as well laugh about it.
Who's the last person you'd speak to on death row?
That'd be Tristan. 100%.
What would you say to him?
It depends on the scenario. I'd either say, don't worry about it, enjoy your life, or enact revenge, plan vengeance. Depends. Depends who.
What's the last thing you'd say to your daughter?
Good question. I'd say, try and find a man that reminds you of me. I'd say. And I'm going to tell her to do that anyway. Them. I have a few daughters, but yeah, tell them to do that anyway. But, yeah, it depends on the scenario. There's lots of different ways this death could possibly happen. But I don't feel like I'll be put on death row. I don't feel that's going to happen. I feel like I'll either get assassinated or I'll live to a ripe old age on my boat somewhere with my eye patch and my pirate hat, and my big cigar, talking about, you know, Top G's boat. I'm going to make it a thing.
If you were on death row, what's the last thing you'd say to the world?
Again, depends on the scenario. Depends. I think by that point, there's no point pleading your innocence.
I guess if you were going to die tomorrow, what's the last thing you'd say to the world?
I'd like to be remembered as the person who always made the brave choice. And I would hate for my situation, whatever I'm in, to discourage people from being brave. I would make it clear that bravery probably got me in the mess I was in, but there is no world without bravery, and that death is coming for us all. And that if you try and avoid the fight and avoid being brave, hoping to save yourself and save your skin, you only buy more time. And you buy time in a world that you don't possibly want to live in. And the world and history has taught us that even if you're a coward, even if you agree with the system, even if you do what the Matrix wants, even if you avoid the fight, you still get shot. You just get shot later. So what's the point in getting shot later as a coward when you can get shot first as a man? And I would just try and make it very clear to the world to never be discouraged from making the brave choice and doing what they believe is right, because the consequences for that are worth paying. Even if they're death, they're worth paying, because you'll be remembered as a hero, and we're all going to die in the end. Why would you want to die as an insignificant coward when you could die a little bit earlier and be remembered for eternity as a hero who did the right thing? I mean, in the eternity of the human consciousness, what is a few years anyway? Like, what is a few years? You die 10 years earlier as a hero, or you have 10 more years of insignificant coward life, sitting around hiding in your room as a worm to be forgotten forever. Well, then, if you're that kind of person, you truly are a coward. You're really such a pussy. I'd rather die as a hero than live as a coward any day of the week anyway. So I just try my best not to discourage anyone from being brave.
Well, everyone, this has been your guest, Andrew Tate. This has been the Jack Neel podcast. I'd say where can people find you, but he'll pop up on your algorithm regardless.
Yeah, twitter.com, Cobra Tate, and then cobratate.com if you want to see the school or the war room or anything, or I've got a free newsletter on there. You can sign up to that for free.
And Daddy Coin.
And Daddy Coin. That's right. Get in. Staking coming soon. Thank you, sir. Thank you, bro. Thank you.